Little China girl, you shouldn't mess with me. I'll ruin everything you are.
The true reforming aim of the Cultural Revolution, admitting revolutionary failure. From the book, I'll Ruin Everything You Are, Ending Western Propaganda on Red China by Ramin Mazaheri. We must realize that the 1949 Communist Revolution can be fairly called merely an anti-imperialist one, much like the 1776 United States Revolution. Even if a new elite drawn from the regular people replaced the old, the same feudal mentality existed among the mass of the people. China's Cultural Revolution changed all that. Indeed, it is truly the case that China's trash revolution did not fully arrive until their Cultural Revolution. The reason is something no Westerner will object to discussing about Red China: corruption and mismanagement. Clearly, the West's talented tenth is rightly terrified of a cultural revolution happening in their own nations. The idea that they could be toppled from their comfortable perch, be tried for their corruption-related and antisocial crimes, or that they are not doing a fabulous job of leading the masses, is something they necessarily have to resist. Their power is based on their exclusivity and their alleged exceptionalism, just like a corrupt Chinese communist cadre, not on a broad social ideal or actual democratic mandate, whether formal or informal. By the mid-1960s, the Communist Party had been in charge for 15 years, and yet utopia was not quite at hand. Surely the capitalists would have implemented that by 1960 had they been given the chance. From Fairbank, begin quote, as this effort continued, meaning the building up of China, however, Mao became concerned about the seemingly inevitable build-up of the institutions of the central government and its many levels of officials and cadres who seemed to be taking the place of the local elite in imperial times. He feared a revival of the ruling class domination of the villagers. Given the modern tendency for expert management, and the irrepressible tendency toward personal privilege and corruption among China's new ruling class, it would be hard to prove him wrong, close quote. Obviously, we should ignore his parenthetical implication that only China's new socialist ruling class had a tendency toward corruption. Fairbank gives no proof or reason why the Chinese are more corrupt than anyone else. What is truthful is that modern 20th century history knows that technocratism, or expert management, is indeed a major threat to the average person. Hillary Clinton was the most qualified presidential candidate ever, while Brussels is built on the altar of technocratism. What is never said in Western media is the primary fault with these oh-so-qualified people. Their neoliberal, neo-imperialist ideology is terrible and clearly unwanted democratically. But Fairbank makes clear, and you won't believe me if I hadn't quoted him, the basis of the Mao-led Cultural Revolution was to preserve the most anti-oligarchic aspects of the 1949 revolution. Because exchanging one minor gentry for another, imperial gentry replaced by communist gentry, is no revolution at all, but only a brand change. It's like going from W to Obama. Brown confirms Mao had the same goal, but with more honesty and without implications against Chinese society. Brown notes that Mao had already launched 7 anti-corruption campaigns between 1951 to 1965. And yet he was quoted in 1964 as openly saying, Begin quote. At present, you can buy a party branch secretary for a few packs of cigarettes, not to mention marrying a daughter to him. Close quote. Westerners assume that such honesty cannot exist in socialist-inspired countries. Those places are all totalitarian spy states, right? They have no conception of the range of government critiques in Iranian media either. But the Chinese know better, and they knew that in the mid-1960s, which is why Mao openly admitted it. Back to Fairbank, begin quote. The August 1966 11th plenum also put forward Mao's general vision of the moment against revisionism, which was intended to achieve a drastic change in the mental outlook of the whole Chinese people. Spiritual regeneration, as he put it, was to take precedence over economic development. Close quote. Fairbank, as a Western intellectual, must of course cast doubt on the very idea that the 11th plenum was possibly the product of a democratic discussion process, which involved more than just Mao's ideas. Perhaps far more important is his Western academic duty to cast proper doubt on anything known as spiritual regeneration, much less a socialist-inspired one. What a crazy idea of that soulless monster Mao. Spiritual development over economic development. Regardless, the core of the problem was the Communist Party being so ineffective. Therefore, the Cultural Revolution was the attempt by many honest revolutionaries of the party to appeal to grassroots power instead of the party apparatus or even the People's Liberation Army. Per Brown, begin quote. So the Cultural Revolution was Mao's exasperated ploy to clean up and clear out the party with the help of the citizens, by giving them the authority to stand up, be heard, and punish and or remove the millions of rotten local cadres who were mostly making their lives miserable and poorer. Close quote. Fairbank and the West are incapable, or unwilling, to view the Cultural Revolution from this perspective. The bottom, the 99%, the people. If they did, they would clearly see that Brown's analysis that the Cultural Revolution empowered the average person over the establishment of the Communist Party exonerates the Cultural Revolution in terms of its clear pro-democratic aims. Part of Fairbank's problem is that the Chinese take corruption, good governance, very seriously, and without that film noir, cynical tolerance of Western modernity, they execute people over it, like in Iran. The West views governance as a path to self-enrichment, or an obstacle to self-enrichment, and thinks they are more moral than the Chinese, because their bribery is done in the sunshine and called lobbying. Despite all the scandals during France's administrations of Sarkozy and Hollande, nobody has ever gone to prison, nor likely will. It is also not unfair to point out that when the West says that the Cultural Revolution was an attempt to consolidate power, factionalism, or the killing off of dissidents, it must be remembered that many of these dissidents were the West's ideological allies, as they composed the ones who did not want corruption to be rooted out. They were the corrupt ones, in what surely must have been a significant percentage of cases. They say that everyone in jail claims to be innocent. I can promise you that every Iranian regime refugee says they were pure angels, the most devoted of public servants, and that the other guy was the corrupt one. What were the show trials of the Cultural Revolution, after all? They were, apart from the top-level ones, mostly a trial by jury of your peers. If you were a small-time cadre running a small-time factory in a small-time town, your workers and the townspeople knew, by your years of actions, if you needed to be tarred and feathered and run out of town or not, no? Are small-town hicks even so stupid that they don't know what is really going on in their own hick town? I doubt it. But regardless of what I think, the Cultural Revolution empowered locals to make these decisions with a base question of corrupt or not corrupt. This is not an exoneration of a lynch mob, but to deny the accusation that the Cultural Revolution was nothing but unfair, illogical lynch mob justice, as the West often claims. Did unjust things happen in the Cultural Revolution? Yes. Simply Google that term, and you will find plenty of examples, some of which are likely true. So you don't need my input on that subject. This book is to provide balance to the critics of the Cultural Revolution, which is all that exists in the West. Was it all Mao or the Communist Party's fault? Absolutely not. And that's even according to Fairbank. Begin quote. To be sure, as the situation got increasingly out of control and into violence, Mao made various efforts to rein it in, but seldom successfully. Close quote. I appreciate Fairbank's even-handedness here, but mismanagement is still a crime, in China at least. However, mismanagement is not the same as a policy of genocide/fear/chaos that the West usually portrays as the motivation for and guiding policy of the Cultural Revolution. Given that rural education was non-existent and that the party had become non-revolutionary, we should ask, how can a culture truly change for the better?